ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to episode 142 of the Seezus Show. Hope you guys enjoyed last episode, which was 141. And then in episode 141, it was Terrence, Willie, and myself, and we discussed KD's appreciation with his greatness, Anthony Davis' temporary injury in the Lakers' current state of mind, Middleton returning to the lineup with the Bucks, the emergence of OKC and the Pelicans, Embiid's potential return, and much, much more. So I hope you guys enjoyed that episode. Make sure to subscribe on all forms of social media at TheSeezusShow. Terrence, we miss you, but I hope you're having fun in Belize. And ladies and gentlemen, before we get started on today's hot episode, make some noise for my other co-host, Carl Conyers. How you doing, man?
All right, man. Trying to stay dry out here.
Trying to stay dry out here. What was that saying you said before we started the episode?
It was the April showers bring May flowers.
April showers bring May flowers.
Not supposed to be in LA though.
Yeah, not supposed to be in LA, but it's not too bad when it's raining here. I just stay in. I've kind of become more of a homebody year by year, so I just be watching TV and getting some chores done, working on some stuff at the crib. So
I feel you.
I've been doing all right, man. You been good?
Yeah. Just tired, man. It's been a long weekend.
Yeah. Last time I saw you, I was gonna say last time I saw you when we went to watch Dune 2, but I saw you last week here around this time when they had the whole little crawfish and shrimp.
Yeah.
That shit was good.
Yep.
That shit was really good. I made sure I took some to go. 'Cause I have no food at the crib, man.
Yeah, man.
It's crazy because it's literally you never know what you're gonna get with each episode. And when I say that, 1 week you available, 1 week Terrence gone. 1 week Terrence available, 1 week you gone. So it's gonna be interesting when we got the whole crew together as well too. So hopefully that's next episode. But you ready to get into today's hottest topics?
I am.
All right, man. The Dallas Mavericks have been winners of 6 straight. They're currently 44-29 in the West. They're the 6th seed, and they're only a half game out of the 5th seed and 2 games out of the 4th seed as well, too. And I know something that we always talk about is, players and teams being able to kind of turn that switch on, and then people just kind of catching, or teams rather, just kind of catching strides at the right time, man. From what you've seen from Dallas thus far, this second half post All-Star break, especially this 6-game win streak, what are your thoughts on Dallas, and do you think they can legitimately make a run in the playoffs?
I think yes, they could, just mainly because they have Luka. But at the same time, I just feel like a lot of these Western Conference teams are kind of just like stacked up in this same bracket of yeah, they could, but will they? There's a lot of deficiencies, I feel like, with Dallas. But I will say, and it's funny, I think we were talking about it after the trade deadline, I was like, I like a lot of the little moves that Dallas made, and like getting Daniel Gafford and PJ Washington, has been really, really good for them. Because Luka right now is kind of like similar to what Chris Paul was in his prime. It's like you give me a lob threat or somebody like that, like it's gonna be great. And I think Daniel Gafford and Derek Lively, the 2 centers, have the highest shooting percentages since the All-Star break.
Wasn't there like a stat that Daniel Gafford was kind of chasing, like, in comparison to Will Chamberlain or something like that?
From shooting percentage?
Yeah,
probably. It's been ridiculous. It's been like 70-some%.
It's been all live.
Mostly in like putbacks.
Wow.
Yeah. But yeah, so I mean, and then you also have Kyrie, which for a lot of situations is great. I just, last year they didn't make the playoffs, so we have no clue what they will look like for real when we get there. And it's also just, the competition is so stacked in the West right now. But they have one of the best players. They'll have one of the best players in the playoffs when it comes to that time.
Yeah.
And it looks like they're going to avoid the play-in as well. So, I'm not I wouldn't put all my eggs in that basket.
Yeah.
But I also would not be surprised at all, at least to find them in the conference finals.
Yeah. Would you say, if we're going from player option number 1 to the 12th man on the roster, would you say that Dallas has a better team now than they did when they went to the Western Conference Finals? How do you feel about that?
I don't know, because I think
because they had Spence, Dorian Finney-Smith, Dwight Powell still, obviously. David Bertans, Luka, Jalen Brunson.
I know that team fit really well. I don't know if this is, I don't know if that team is necessarily better.
Yeah.
I really do think it'll be, when we get to the playoffs, especially because they added some pieces halfway through the year. So, we still have to see how that looks. But I think that team clearly fit really well for them in the playoffs. And I think this team definitely has that kind of potential. But I think there's also, it's easy to say when they made the Western Conference Finals, but you also have to put in all the other factors of like the teams they played and like if teams are better or worse or whatever, injury situations, other stuff like that. So I can't just say, that even if I felt like this team was better, that means they were going to do the same thing again. But at the end of the day, bro, Luka is deadly. He is when he wants to be, and a lot of the time, most of the time in the playoffs, he wants to be.
Yeah. That's what I'd be saying. Like with Luka, he's not like Harden, right? Like even though they're gonna lose, right? At least with Harden's situation, like he just looks like he's disinterested in playing basketball at all. Like the slightest thing looks like it can throw him off. With Luka, if I lose, I'm still gonna give you 30, 10, and like 8, no matter what, which I love.
Yeah, you're not gonna. I mean, Harden, that's a whole different thing. You feel like Harden, if he did a little bit more, they probably could have won. Versus Luka, it feels like maybe if other people did a little bit more, they would have won. Which is what you want from your star. Like you gave me everything you could.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's also really at the end of the day, it's just like a tough ass field right now. Is how I feel about it. And then also it depends. I don't even know. Because everybody's so close, the seeding is all over the place. So. Yeah. Are they going to fall on the same side of the bracket as Denver and have to play them potentially in like the second round or something like that?
That's a potential right now, first round matchup.
Yeah. So, because Denver right now is the 3rd seed. Exactly. So, yeah, it's just, it's tough. It's one of those years, like the person who you face in the first round in other years, potentially, you might not have had to face them until later on. But
yeah, that's how deep it is. You're right. Now, how do you feel about, Kyrie Irving? Obviously, like his last year in the playoffs with the Celtics, when they lost to the Bucks, he didn't play that well. And then, obviously he got injured that one year when they were finally healthy with the Nets. It was an ankle injury against the Bucks, oddly enough. And then the year after that, they basically, I think they get swept by the Celtics, but he doesn't play well. Do you think he's going to play well this year in the playoffs, knowing that he's not in the East anymore? He's in the Western Conference.
I think he'll probably play better only because he played in that series where it was just him and KD basically.
Yeah.
And KD was getting clamped. Yeah, Luka's not gonna do that. You know, I think it'll be different when he doesn't have to
be the point guard.
Be the point guard, but also just do as much. Like that, specifically that series, if KD's giving you like 18 a game, then that means I have to be going harder. I have to be doing a lot more. Luka's going to give you at least probably 30. Yeah. Like that's just, I feel like point blank, period. Yeah. So that automatically kind of reduces your load, and I think should make things easier. The best we've seen Kyrie is when he's playing next to a Luka type person. Of course, LeBron brings a lot of other things, but just that heliocentric type of player has been the best that we've seen him. Mm-hmm. So I think this will potentially be a better opportunity for him. Brooklyn was Brooklyn. I think there were just also so many other things that were going on then. And then when he was with the Celtics, he was trying to be the number one. And we all know that Kyrie being the number one has usually led to missing the playoffs or just not being that great. Mm-hmm. So it'll be interesting. They have 2 stars, but a lot of teams have 2 stars right now too.
I think the top 10 teams, you can argue to an extent, have 2 stars. I mean, I don't know, who would you say the star is for the second star, the co-star for Steph right now?
No, they don't have 2 stars.
Brand name Clay.
They don't have 2 stars.
So outside of them, everybody got 2 stars at least.
Like the Timberwolves have 2 stars. The Nuggets kind of. I could throw Jamal Murray, especially considering it'll be the playoffs.
Yeah.
The Clippers, Pelicans, Brandon Ingram, Mavs, Suns. Mm-hmm. I guess you can call Sabonis a star with the Kings.
Not OKC.
OKC does not have 2 stars.
Yeah.
That's why Shea's really like. I still don't think he should win MVP, but he deserves at least to be number 2 in that conversation because he doesn't have another star. He has a bunch of kids.
Yeah.
Like Jalen Williams is good. He is good, but he's just not. And I think potentially he could end up being a star, but he's not that.
Jaylen Brown.
Huh?
I think his upside's like a Jaylen Brown.
Yeah, but even honestly, I think a little bit better because he's so much stronger already than Jaylen Brown is right now.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, his handle isn't amazing, but it's better than Jaylen Brown. So
it's funny that you mentioned the whole left situation because, I mean, obviously they're teammates right now, but Drew Holiday went on Draymond Green's podcast and said, like, yo, like, he's been finishing with his left hand. It looks tighter, blah, blah, blah.
Shut
but
up.
it's only one way to find out, you know what I'm saying? Switching gears here, and we talked about this off air as well, too. The Charlotte Hornets guard LaMelo Ball will not play again this season as he continues to rehab a right ankle injury, the team announced Thursday. Ball has been out since January 27th and is about to be April, ladies and gentlemen. When he did not play in the second game of a back-to-back, the 22-year-old missed 2 significant stretches of the 2023-24 season, sitting out nearly 7 weeks after he sprained his right ankle in November. In all, Ball has been limited to 58 games over the past 2 seasons due to a number of injuries to the same ankle as well, too. Right now, currently the Hornets are 18-54, and yeah, he signed a 5-year rookie max extension this past July. So, you know, what are your thoughts on LaMelo Ball and the Hornets moving forward, man?
Bro, let me read you this real quick. 51, 75.
51 rookie year.
51 rookie year.
Okay.
75 year 2, and that's when he was an All-Star. 36 and 22. Dang. So bro has had 1 healthy season, and he's young. I think we've talked about this before because injuries are such a big part of this game, but you just don't usually. Steph being an example, and I feel like there's probably a couple other people, but usually when you come in injured, especially this much early on, it just doesn't. You tend to get a lot better, or if it does, it's for a small period of time, and then it kind of rears its head again. Look, man, and we guess we'll never know with Jello because he never actually made the league, but
he made it for
no, he didn't make
right?
the league. He was. He maybe played like 10 minutes of NBA action or something like that.
Shit, it's probably about the same amount of minutes as Don. I'm kidding.
I'm dead. But yeah, I mean, this is a different aside, but they were able to. Granted, Giannis is better, but Giannis has been able to keep his brother in the league for years. Mm-hmm. They couldn't even keep him in the league for a year, for 10 games. Yeah. But yeah, regardless, the Ball brothers, they just have bad. I don't want to say bad genes because clearly they're NBA players, but like in terms of their health and their body composition, that's just not it. It's not it. Mm-hmm. I'm not necessarily surprised, but also the only thing I will say is I wonder if this will be similar to a Shea situation, because if you looked at the 2 years prior to last year with Shea, you could have potentially said that he was injury prone as well. Mm-hmm. But I think a lot of it was
he injury prone, you think, or they kind of.
Well, that's what I'm saying. A lot of it was the team was shitty, so it's like we have no need to rush you back for even any small nagging injury because he was missing a lot of games those like 2 years before. Yeah. But it was like we're one of the worst teams in the league. We might as well play all our other young guys, give them some opportunities, and not rush you back. Yeah. So that's the only thing that I could say potentially, might be working in his favor of like they're just being overly cautious because they're bad and there's no need in rushing him back. But end of the day, like right now, it's just not a good look. And I think that people were already talking a little bit about them potentially focusing the franchise more on Brandon Miller, which, to be honest with you, I think would be at this point kind of better anyway, only because LaMelo has never been efficient either, so I think maybe
like 41, 42% every year.
Yeah, 43, 42, 41, 43. And he's pretty decent at 3-point shooting, but I just think he's a guy that maybe if you were to dial it back a little bit and I don't want to fully compare him to Chris Paul, but just Chris Paul in terms of like I could still give you 18, 20, but he's a great passer. That you can't take
Tyrese
away from him.
Halliburton,
Exactly. You know, like something like that. Well, but even Tyrese before he got injured was efficient. Yeah, exactly.
As hell.
I think might be better if it's just kind of like I'm the number 2. I'm the one with the ball in my hands the most, but I'm number 2 on the scoring chart.
I like that.
And I think Brandon Miller could be kind of like the head of that monster a little bit more, and that might potentially make them a better team. And then maybe even with a little bit less of a load, his body might fare better. I don't know, but and then I'm just real quick looking at his play-in stats, bro. He played in 2 play-in games. One he shot 28%, and the other one he shot 28%. So
the lights be too bright.
Man, that's tough. That's real tough.
Yeah. No, that's interesting that you kind of bring it up. One thing I was going to bring up was the Steph Curry situation that you brought up already. But with Steph's situation, I mean, his ankles have kind of bothered him throughout his career, but it's always been something that's minor. So he got to go to that same doctor or some shit because, like you said, having this injury at this young age, like it can get better, but the chances of it getting better are kind of on the low end. And it's not like Steph Curry's situation, right? Like, obviously, the Hornets are a bad team, right? So they're going to draft lottery-based picks the next couple of years. But it's not like Steph's situation where LaMelo already got thrown the fucking bag. So that's kind of going to affect the salary cap. And with Steph, he had that, it's like a 4-year, $30 million deal. So they were able to continuously add, more free agents and even get that KD, years later because of that contract. So that's going to be interesting to see like what happens moving forward, with his contract. And like I said, like basically what you said, building around Brandon Miller. So I agree with you. I think they should kind of gear their roster towards Brandon Miller.
Cold.
Yeah,
he really is. Yeah. He's fire.
Yeah, he's fire. And it's just his rookie year, so like this is the worst he's ever gonna be. You know what I'm saying?
You hope. It could be Tyreek. Every time, bro, I just always think about Tyreek Evans. It's like that's what everybody was probably saying. Oh, this is the worst he's gonna be. And this was actually the best that he would ever be.
That shit is sad. I mean, obviously, he's under contract for 4 more years. Do you try to go after best available if you're the Hornets, or do you you're scared, so you're like, let's try to pick up a point guard?
You talking about draft or free agency?
Draft.
I don't think they're going to draft a point guard. I mean, if I guess the point guard was the best available, but everything I've been hearing about this year, that's not really the case. But it depends. It depends because I know Dillingham is probably going to go top 3 or 4. So it does depend, I feel like, on where their pick ends up. But actually, you know what? I wouldn't be mad at them picking Rob.
Yeah.
Only because, not even as a LaMelo replacement, more of they don't have I don't know who their 2 guard is right now. They don't have a 2. And those 2, LaMelo could still be your point guard and Rob be the shooting guard, but in terms of who they're guarding, height-wise, LaMelo can match up with 2 guards, and Rob can match up with the 1. Right? Exactly. So, and even if you want to have them both play point, Dillingham right now, at least, I think rookie year would be a perfect off-the-bench type of scorer guy. So that wouldn't be the worst. I think also because this draft class is not...
It's kind of mid.
It looks mid. I'm not going to pass judgment because I feel like it's a couple draft classes that people said were going to be mid or not good, and then ended up putting up a lot of like decent NBA players. So we will see.
Okay. Like we said before we started recording this, it's only 2 more weeks and the play-in starts, right?
Yep.
So going into the playoffs, what player do you think has the most pressure this year in the playoffs, going into the playoffs, heading into the playoffs? If you had to pick one.
Just one?
Just one.
I might have to go with Jason Tatum.
Oof. Okay.
Only because they just have so much pressure on them right now. It's really funny because it never felt like, for instance, like when the Warriors were really good, it didn't really feel like they had a lot of pressure on them. But I think it's because they had already won, so it's like, okay, everything we're doing now is like icing on the cake. Versus like the Celtics, it's like you guys you've either been there or been close, but every time there's been some, like, you've been unclutched or you couldn't do this or you fell apart. So a lot of things that make people not believe in you. So now it's like I feel like everyone feels like, okay, you guys have no excuse this year. You should for sure at least make the finals, if not win. And if you don't even get to the finals, that's going to be a huge indictment. And I feel like out of everyone on that team is going to fall on Tatum more than anyone else. And especially if, say this is the closest they ever get for the rest of his career. I just think that a lot of these other people like LeBron, Steph, like I think it makes sense to try and say like it would suck if they don't end up making it out of the play-in or whatever.
Their career is already set.
Yeah, they've already done so much. You're not about to get mad at somebody for not doing something at 35 or 40 like LeBron and Steph are, especially when they both have 4 rings each.
Yeah.
Versus these, the younger guys who are. Well, Tatum is now like he's still of course
26.
younger, but yeah, he's getting in that middle tier range of like, okay, this is when you're really supposed to be making your legacy, and now your legacy just stands of a bunch of kind of like flameouts.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. Yeah, I was thinking Tatum as well too, but I didn't want to choose the same one, so I'm gonna go with Dame. Dame just because he demanded out. Tatum's only 26. Dame is 33. He's about to be 34 in July.
Yeah.
And if we're talking statistics wise, this is probably one of his worst years as well too. Obviously, he's got to get still adjusted to playing with Giannis and the Bucks and whatnot as well too. Coaching changes midway through the season as well, so you can attribute a lot of things to that. But he don't got much longer. It's only going to get worse. So I think I would have to choose Dame as well too. That's the specific reason why they broke up the trio when they had Drew Holiday. They call him Dame Time. We want to see him in the crunch time. He's only been to the Western Conference Finals once. And when he was in the Western Conference Finals, although he lost to Golden State, they were up like double digits every game and blew it. So you got Giannis now. You don't have to be the number one option. We literally just have to have you run the show and help them boys close. And this is the best shot he has. Because before Doc Rivers, they were 34 and 13 or 30 and 13, and I think now they barely have a 500 record with Doc. So even though they're 10 games away from the first seed, I still feel like I give them just as a good shot to get to the finals as I do the Celtics.
Yeah, I think the only thing for me with Dame is, and I definitely understand people that do, but I just can't hold any of the failures against him, because it's okay, we look at Jason Tatum and all those things. Jason Tatum had great teams. No one would ever deny. You had Jaylen Brown, Al Horford, all these other people that, on the teams prior. And then, of course, this year the team is amazing. Yeah. And Dame, the best he's had is CJ McCollum, who never has and never will make an all-star team. And then who else? Nurkic? There literally was nobody else on those teams with Dame outside of his first 2 years. I think is when they still had LaMarcus Aldridge and those other people. But that was his first 2 years. You're not saying, he should have carried them to the finals in those first 2 years. So I just think I feel like the Dame situation is tough because I can't see, LeBron, maybe one other person could have probably got those teams further, but we're talking about top 5 people, that would have done that.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody else could have carried those teams any better than he did, because they fucking sucked. To be honest with you, bro, all his teams really blew. That's why I can't even people are yeah, he demanded out, but look at what this team looks like without him. That's all they did was trade him, and I guess they ended up trading Nurkic for Ayton, but
they got Brogdon back.
And it's one of the worst teams in the league.
It's crazy because looking at all the other bottom teams, the roster low-key's better than theirs.
Than the Trailblazers?
Than the other trash teams.
Oh, yeah.
I'm why y'all obviously you're still supposed to be bad, but you would think they'd at least win 20-some games.
None of them are defensive players at all. At all. Aiden's not, Brogdon's not, Scoot's not. Scoot's been playing awful.
Simons
think
is definitely not.
Yeah, Simons is not. Literally,
Jeremy Grant probably.
And he's not. Jeremy Grant, when he was in Denver and when he was in Philadelphia, was a defensive player.
He got the money.
But then he got to the Pistons, and then he's been there. He's this offensive guy. He doesn't, the blocks and steals, all that is not the same anymore. And it was clear he wasn't showing up when he was on the team with Dame.
Jeremy Grant. And I think Denver was gonna pay him too, but he wanted to be a number one option, right, for you guys.
We paid him more. We definitely paid him more.
He basically would have been Aaron Gordon for them. I'm happy Aaron Gordon is in Denver.
Yeah, it's crazy because to me, I think Jeremy Grant is literally he's a role player.
Yeah.
But since he came to the Pistons, and then the same continued with the Trailblazers, he's been like miscast as I'm supposed to be this. No, like you were the best when you were averaging 10 points a game, and you were doing all this other stuff to help make your team better.
Yeah.
But now you have this tag on you that you're a lot better. I think that's also honestly why they might not have moved him, is because they might not have felt like we are gonna get the greatest value right now. So it's like we might as well at least keep him for a year. I guess help with our younger players or some shit.
Yeah.
But
they're gonna have a good trade bait though next year, Portland.
Yeah. I think Brogdon, Grant. It depends. They might get rid of one of those guards.
I'm keeping Simons over
Shaden. Because now you got three guards.
6'5"? I
think so.
And how tall is Simon? It's like 6'3".
Yeah.
But he just dropped the school.
And Simons is not he's a shooting guard in a point guard's height. Exactly.
Yeah. I don't know. I know it's his rookie year, so I gotta just wait because I was about to and be like, I'll get rid of Scoop.
I think you just can't. You can't yet because
early,
rookie point guards by and large be having
and he has a guard
bad years,
and it's a guards driven league, so
and in the West is where all the best guards are.
Yeah, so I'll give him another year. Speaking of Dame, I think if the playoffs were to start today, they'd be playing their rivals, Miami Heat. Now that's kind of crazy. You come here, you want to go to the Heat, and they smack you guys. That'd be wild.
That would be very tough. I don't think they're gonna get smacked though.
Mm-hmm.
I really don't. I mean, health is everything.
Mm-hmm.
But if they are healthy, if they were healthy last year, I don't think they get smacked by the Heat. To be fair, they might have still lost, but I don't think they get smacked.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that there's so many things that we talk about they give up. I still think at the end of the day, this team is better with Dame than with Drew Holiday. Because Drew Holiday brings a lot defensively, but if you look at his shooting percentages and all their playoff runs, and the things that was hurting them was people weren't making shots.
Yeah.
And that's one thing that at least you feel like you can count on Dame to be doing.
Yeah.
And then especially, to be honest with you, on such a Miami they're not winning with offense 9 times out of 10. Like they have some shooters, so they might get hot one or two of those games, but Miami's not putting up 120, 130 points. So you just need to really be able to keep up with them.
Slow the pace down, take efficient shots, and like you said, maybe catch fire.
Yeah.
Going into Miami, obviously last year they made a Cinderella run, obviously as the 8th seed, but it's kind of crazy because of the playing. Like you got to kind of battle for those last 2 seeds, but also with Miami too, it's like they're also another team too that's always injured throughout the year. So I feel like their records that we've seen the past years, and even including this year, isn't really an indication of how good they should be. Because right now they're 40-33, but Tyler Hero's missed a good chunk. Jimmy Butler's been in and out the lineup a lot. Bam's even missed a good amount of games. They lost Josh Richardson. So they always losing their players, but still manage to stay afloat. You think they can go on another Cinderella run this year?
Yeah, with the Heat, it's always possible. I will say with the health thing, I think the health thing with them is what it is because it's in the regular season, but it's also in the playoffs every year. They're missing somebody. Yeah. And honestly, what people aren't having the conversation about is like we're talking about LaMelo. Tyler Hero don't be playing games either. I was about to say that
too. He only played like 50, 55 games
a year. And then he played like 2 games in the playoffs. And his best
freak accidents too, which is crazy.
His best playoff run was when he was a rookie. Exactly.
No fans.
Exactly. So
you think that's what Tatum was talking about?
I honestly would trade if we were going to trade somebody. Like I think they were dumb to not trade Hero for Beal. Dame.
Okay.
Nah, for Beal, I wouldn't do that. But for Dame, that to me is just like a no brainer. Tyler Hero at his
so they actually said no in the trade.
Yeah, look, the trade should have happened easily, but they were trying to hold on to Hero and whatever else. But I just think that that's just an aside thing. I think that Hero was just overvalued. He's an inefficient 20-point per game scorer. He's streaky. He's much better as your sixth man, but now they want him to be the starter, probably just because he's young and was in his feelings.
Yeah.
But long story short, yes. Regardless of him, because it has been regardless of him every year, I think the Heat potentially could go on a run just because of they always have these role players that know how to step up in certain situations. But that's also what scares me when it gets to the bigger stages for them, and which is kind of has been, is like those guys. It feels like they know what to do up until they get to the highest point. And then it just becomes Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo.
Yeah.
And a lot of times that's not enough to win you games or win you a series against some of the exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think they can. I don't know, man. It's like the Celtics on paper they're the best team, but the East is so weak. It's really just going to come down to matchups and who they get. Like, we still got 2 weeks left, so they could potentially go to the 6, even the 5 seed. So, I think they can beat anybody, but it's definitely going to be a lot harder than it was in the bubble than it was last year as well, too. But we're going to see. I think Tyler Hero's set to finally come back. I think he got the same shit Donovan Mitchell got. I think he got, like,
plantar
like
fascia or whatever.
Injections in his foot or some shit.
Yeah.
So hopefully, he can be a 6-man type of guy as well too, because like I said, we haven't seen that dude in the playoffs in a long time. Moving on from there, how far do you think Minnesota can go without Karl Anthony Towns in the playoffs? I mean, they're currently, for the time being, they have the win record over the Denver Nuggets. So they're currently the number 1 seed. They still have the number 1 defense. They're top 5 in point differential right now. We're saying the West is stacked, but how far do you think they can potentially go? I've been watching the past 2 weeks without Cat, and I really love their team, man. I really, really, really love their team. I'm gonna go on a limb to say if we take out the Denver Nuggets, I think 2 through 8, they can beat any team in a 7-game series without Karl Anthony Towns. I love their roster. It feels like, if Anthony Edwards can step up and be a little bit more smart with his shot selection in the crunch time, I think they'll have a chance. And if Mike Conley can just play steady, make his shots, get his players involved, I think they'll be good, because I like the pieces that they kind of have around them as well too. But I've been watching them play specifically more so within the fourth quarter, and how they generate their efficient shots and how they can still put pressure at the rim and how they play stout defense. Now it's going to be a little bit different, right, as well too. Like, the one thing I do love about Cat is he stretches the floor. Rudy Gobert, it's going to be kind of tough when you have 2 bigs on there, and Rudy Gobert can't really guard those smaller guards, and you have to go small. But that's why I also like Naz Reid. So my only red flag right now is probably Rudy Gobert's limitations defensively, when they start to exploit weaknesses. But right now, like, I haven't seen a team yet, even though we're stacked in the West, that I'm like, oh my God, I'm kind of outside of Denver, like, oh my God, I'm kind of scared of you. But how you feel about the Minnesota Timberwolves?
I think that, one, like, y'all already know how I feel about Cat. I can't believe that nigga made the All-Star team. That to me is just ridiculous. But I think that right now their record is 10-3 without Cat. I don't know. I don't want to say that they're better without him, because they don't have another scorer on their team that really takes that place. In terms of, like, you're talking about, like, stretching the floor and everything else, that, like, he is a good scorer. I definitely can't take that away from him.
Yeah.
But like you're saying, like, Rudy Gobert, every year that we see him in the playoffs, usually
He's on the bench.
somebody, either that, he's on the bench, or when he's on the court, somebody's taking advantage of him. So that is always going to be something that's tough, especially when it's a strength that you rely on in the regular season. It's similar, we were talking earlier about the Kings. Like Sabonis, you rely on him to do all these things in the regular season, and all of a sudden when you get to the playoffs, you have to play differently. And that, everyone plays differently in the playoffs, but having to change that drastically is very big. So I think that, the Timberwolves have the potential Like honestly, it's like we were saying about the Mavericks, bro. Like they have the potential
Everybody
to do
got a
something.
shot.
Well, I actually don't. I don't know if I see the Timberwolves in the conference finals. I really don't. I think that maybe next year they could do it. I think that maybe they should, like we were saying, I think replace Mike Conley with maybe just someone a little bit younger or something like that.
But I would love if DeJounte Murray could find his way over there, bro.
Oh yeah, I don't think they can do that.
Yeah, I don't think they can do that.
Because they weren't able to get Rudy Gobert until they traded D'Angelo Russell, right?
Yeah.
And D'Angelo, they make around like that similar amount of money. Or at least D'Angelo Russell was. I think he might be on a new contract now. But Timberwolves gave him a lot of money.
And Timberwolves give up a lot of their picks to get Rudy, right?
Hell yes.
Yeah,
too
so
much.
they're fucked.
Way too many.
Yeah, they're fucked.
That's why they got to make this work. Which Timberwolves right now.
They be strapping, man.
Yeah, but the Timberwolves right now are the Hawks. They are the 60-win Hawks to me.
Oh.
I don't.
Who's the Hawks superstar though?
No. I mean, Anthony Edwards is way better than any of the people on the Hawks. I don't want to like fully like.
Now, if you said
roster-wise.
I want to say Hawks. Now, if you said Utah with Donovan Mitchell, maybe.
Yeah,
I think that's more comparable.
But even those Hawks made it to the conference finals
In the East, nigga.
I mean, I know. Still,
Yeah,
I'm just saying. They still did make it kind of far.
Yeah, they did.
That's so. I think everything with them hinges on Anthony Edwards. That's really like end all be all. He has the potential to be great, but then it's honestly he proves it every week. He might have a week full of good games, but on average, it's like he'll have. I might go for 30 2 times in this week, and then the other game I'm gonna go for 9. Mm-hmm. And that's just not. You can't have that with your like main guy, especially in the playoffs,
especially with no cat.
And yeah, he's just way too prone right now to have like these really terrible games. Mm-hmm. And it reminds me last year of the playoffs and play-in. Like he played awful in their first play-in game that they lost, and then the second one he was good, and then he was pretty good in the playoffs. But like, you just gotta to make it far. You can't have the like terrible games when you don't have the people around you. Yeah. Like Steph, I don't really think he even had that many terrible games before they got to the finals in like their run. But if he did, at least okay, I have Clay who could do something. Draymond used to be able to at least do a little bit something. Nice their bench, and then when they didn't have the bench, they had KD, and like he doesn't have somebody else on his team like that to me, especially at least in the playoffs. Like Cat, again, I know he's pretty good offensively, but every time he's been in the playoffs, he's not been good. Or at least he hasn't played up to his potential. He's been like 15 or 17 points, something like that.
Yeah.
So, I like we're saying, we got 2 weeks left. I think it is, we're going to see a lot more from some of these teams down the stretch.
Yeah.
But I think so much of this year really just comes down to what are they going to be doing, when we really get down to it in the playoffs.
Okay. We're talking about these top seeds. OKC obviously with Shea and, Anthony Edwards with the Minnesota Timberwolves. Obviously, it's been a while since Shea's sniffed the playoffs. I think the last time he was in the playoffs was when CP3 was on OKC in the bubble. So he's had a couple of games under his belt, but obviously different circumstances. And like we say, Anthony Edwards has been in the playoffs these past 2 seasons. Who do you think is going to have a better playoff run?
I absolutely would trust Shea to have because Shea already has the main thing we talk about is consistency. Mm-hmm. He's scored 30 points more than anybody else in the league. Mm-hmm. And Luka averages like 5 more points a game than him, which just shows you like he might not always have the highs of getting to 50 and 60, but my bar is basically 30 points. Yeah. Like Luka might give you 20, which isn't bad, and then give you 60, which brings his average up. But Shea is really literally like 30 points a night, like consistently 30 points a night. Mm-hmm. And again, we haven't seen it for real in the playoffs, but I do remember even his first playoff run, when I think he was a rookie or in his second year, he wasn't bad. And he was also like the third or scoring option or something like that.
He had 1 or 2 like good outings.
So
he had a couple good games with against the Rockets in the playoffs too. I'm curious to see, is he gonna get those foul calls in the playoffs? Because if you don't get those foul calls, it's gonna be a little tough.
Yeah, I mean, that's I feel like with so many people though, if you don't really get those foul calls, it can change a lot of things for you. But I think that he has his bag in his game is
He has no weakness.
Yeah, you know, it's I might go down from 30 to 25, but I'm still going to consistently give you that 25.
25. Mm-hmm.
And you know, we talked about he doesn't have any stars, but he has a deep team around him. Like all those like J-Dub, Chet, Kaysen I like, Lou Dort, Josh Giddey has been hooping this past week. Josh Giddey, you're hilarious. He's been actually hooping this past week.
You've been hitting that Tracy, but I'm still cheating off of that nigga in the playoffs.
Yeah, no, I feel you. I feel you. But at least if he can play some of how he's been playing, because that's also why his minutes are down this year, and this is the best they've been. It's because it's like, my bro, you can't shoot.
Yeah. Look like Andre Roberson sometimes.
But he's better than Andre Roberson. Andre Roberson shouldn't have been in the league, bro.
That nigga had one. Defense. I'm just talking about defensively. One of the best perimeter defenders I've seen.
Yeah, but it's a lot of dudes who can play defense, but you gotta be able to bring something on the other end of the court.
Hey, man.
Something.
Right. Yeah.
At least Tony Allen could go bang on somebody. You know, like he could hit a couple of shots. He was giving you maybe 10 points a game. Mm-hmm. Andre Roberson was giving you 3 to 4 points a game. Some good defense.
He got paid, nigga.
And like 30% from the free throw.
Like
you remember that?
$50 million contract.
He was it was like 1 year in the playoffs, he was missing like 10 free throws in a row.
Oh, against Golden State?
Yes.
Oh yeah.
That nigga was terrible.
Which also makes me think, like, why was it so hard for not Golden State, OKC to like find like a sniper to complement Russ and KD? Like, why was it so hard?
I think they have kind of like a little bit of hit or miss drafting. Like, we know, of course, they did some amazing drafting, but I think some of their other picks outside of that just could have been better. Mm-hmm. And then because they drafted so well with those top guys, they didn't really have a lot of money to go out and just sign a bunch of snipers.
Yeah, that was crazy. That's all they needed. Malik Monk, we talked about his sideline for 4 to 6 weeks. He had a sprained MCL. And then right now, I think in the standings currently, Sacramento Kings are in playing territory. Last year, they were the 3 seed to end the season. They played against the Warriors, but now they are the 8 seed at 42-31. And like you said before, they're only a game and a half ahead of the Lakers right now. So what do you think happens with the Kings? Because you also told me Huerter went down, which I forgot about. But do you see a scenario where the Kings just, even though, you know, they have 2 all-star caliber players, rather, they just don't make the playoffs this year?
I mean, anytime you're in the play-in, there's a chance you don't make the playoffs, you know, regardless. But I think there's a chance they don't make the play-in because, again, like, this is the most packed I've seen the Western Conference in years. Mm-hmm. And you look at right now, the Kings have lost 2 in a row, so they're at 42-31. Mm-hmm. The Rockets on their 11-game winning streak are at 38-35. Mm-hmm. So it's feasible that the Rockets could end up, you know, pushing the Kings out if these other people stay where they're at and the Kings fall. Like, so everybody right now in these last 4 spots, basically from 8, 9, honestly, from 7, 8, 9, 10 to 11. Mm-hmm. Any of them could move in, any of them could move out. Yeah. So I think it's very feasible for the Kings to not even make the play-in because, to be real, like, they just don't. And it's interesting to me because they have the same team. They have like the exact same team as they had last year.
Literally.
But they just don't look nearly as good.
Huh? I think they only added like JaVale McGee or some shit.
Yeah, like exactly. But they just don't look as good. I think part of it is De'Aaron Fox isn't having as great of a season. I think part of it also Sabonis. His impact, I don't think, has necessarily been the same.
Teams just got better and are healthy.
Yeah, teams definitely got better. Teams got healthier, and sometimes too, you can't always. That's what makes dynasties so great, is because you can think we're just gonna run it back and everything be the same, but teams adjust. Teams, like, you know, try and plan for you. So the teams that can bring back the same team and still be great that's even more of a credit. I feel like people don't really give them. Like, it's tough.
I agree with that.
Because teams are, we're adjusting now. We saw everything you did last year, so, like, we're going to make those adjustments.
Mm-hmm.
That's why, like, what the Nuggets are doing and other things like that, or some of these other teams of the past, is really commendable because everyone knows how you're trying to play now.
Yeah.
You know?
Mm-hmm. I agree. So the Kings have 9 games left. What is their record right now?
Kings are 42-31.
So out of 9 games, they play the Clippers, they play the Knicks, they play Boston, they play OKC, they play the Pelicans, and they play Phoenix. So out of those 9 games, they got 6 playoff teams right there. I wouldn't be surprised if we lose all those games. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's actually realistic.
It is, especially with, Malik Monk was huge for them. That was like 15
like 16,
and 6.
Yeah.
15, 16, and 6 off the bench.
All right, he probably was going to be 6th man of the year, potentially.
He might still. I mean, he's only going to miss 9 games, so I think
Yeah.
he still might win 6th man of the year because I can't think of anybody else I would compare to him because they ended up starting Reeves again for the most part.
Yeah. I liked Russ before the injury. Who else?
Even before the injury, he was a good 6th man, but he was like, I don't know if you remember when Taj Gibson was playing for the Bulls.
Mm-hmm.
He used to get mentioned in like 6th man categories, but he was averaging like 10 and like like the glue guy 6th man. But I feel like those guys don't really win the award. You got to have like the stats for real.
Yeah.
Cause shoot, Andre Iguodala could have won 6th man a couple of years, but he just never had the stats for it.
Mm-hmm.
And
he
that's
got a memoir though called 6th Man. Okay. It's a good memoir, by the way.
That's why I don't think Russ was ever gonna win it this year. Once they got Harden, because like his role was some nights he was averaging playing like 15 minutes a game, or something like that. So
I was just talking about potential 6-man candidates. I was just trying to name some, like, so outside of Malik Monk, outside of Russ, like what other? I can't really think of any like crazy 6 men. I know there's some, but I just can't think right now.
That's why I think Malik Monk's still gonna end up winning it. Yeah.
I'm trying to think. Dallas Pelicans, I can't think. Nuggets, I can't think. OKC, I really can't think. Minnesota.
Oh, they got Karis LeVert.
Is Karis LeVert still on the? Oh, he's on the Cavs. Okay.
Yeah.
I can see that. They 45 and 29 too. Who else?
They got Karis LeVert, Norman Powell, Nas.
Oh,
Reed.
Norman Powell actually been hooping. Okay, I like
He's
that.
He's not gonna win that shit.
He's
though.
not.
Nas Reed, Tim Hardaway, Bogdan. Yeah, none of these people are winning.
Oh, I can see Nas Reed thinking. I can see them. Oh, they got the number 1 seed. No cat. He stepped in. He did. It's all about narratives too. Sometimes, you know what I'm saying?
It is, but I think also in that means that you have to be getting talked about, and nobody's talking about Nas Reed.
Mm-hmm.
Whether that's good, I think he deserves to be getting talked about, but nobody's talking about Nas Reed.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that plays into like the narrative. Like, it's honest, at least maybe it's different for you, but I've never been surprised by who won 6th man of the year.
Yeah.
If Nas Reed won it, a lot of people are gonna be like, who?
Yeah.
So we'll see.
Yeah. Okay. But yeah, if you had a bet, you put it on Malik Monk getting it
easily.
Okay.
Easily.
All right.
It'd be different if he was missing more games, but 9 games isn't, that's nothing.
And he's
right
been
now.
relatively pretty healthy this season, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Speaking of Houston, they're catching fire, 11-game win streak, like you mentioned before. They're currently 38 and 35, 11th in the West, 1 game behind Golden State. And Jalen Green has been going bananas these past 10 games without their number 1 option, Sengun. How do you pronounce that? Sengun?
Shingun.
Shogun, I'm kidding. Shingun. So he's been averaging 30 points, 7 rebounds, 4 assists. And what's honestly caught my eyes is efficiencies went up out of nowhere. Someone who shoots, about 42% from the field. He's shooting 50% from the field and 45% from 3, man. What do you attribute to, 1, the Rockets' 11-game win streak, and 2, Jalen Green balling out of his motherfucking mind?
I mean, 1, the Rockets put together a pretty decent team. Like, earlier in the season, they were definitely above 500 earlier in the season.
Yeah, for a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, and then they kind of hit a stretch where I feel like what happened is they actually had a lot of injuries, more than just Şengün. They have a couple injuries with Şengün is out, Cam Whitmore is out, and Tari Eason is out. And I like all 3 of those players. But what it does is, like, I think the Rockets are one of those teams that has 11, 12 guys that all could be getting rotational minutes on good teams.
Okay.
But I feel like that, for most teams, that ends up being a problem. Because honestly, I feel like it's similar for the Warriors. I know their record is similar. But I think that when you have a lot of these guys who can all play, it's like now it's way more difficult for me to figure out who needs to be playing, the spots they need to be playing in. And then it also can create other things of guys thinking I need to be getting more minutes, or I need to be getting the ball more. And I think that those injuries just really clarified a lot of things. Got guys the ball, like Thompson. Their Thompson twin has been balling since he's been. I think they actually play him either at the small ball 5 or at the 4 with Jabari Smith at the 5 now. It's just opened up things for a lot of the other guys that weren't getting those minutes before, and now that they probably feel more empowered. That's the main thing I feel like with Jalen Green is he just looks so much more confident out there. Like it's insane. It really feels like day and night.
Shout out to Ime too.
Yeah. I mean,
You think
we all know Ime's a great coach.
You think Ime, his style translate better without their big?
Yeah, because he's a defensive coach. Mm-hmm. And then you brought in Fred VanVleet and Brooks, who are defensive players, and then Jabari Smith is kind of a defensive player too, and Thompson is definitely a defensive player.
Yeah, I was there too.
Yeah, so I think that he can play probably a lot more to his style now as well. Like you have way more defense out there, and it's not like you're missing any shooting because Şengün wasn't a 3-point shooter. Yeah. So, and you have guys like you have a point guard. Fred VanVleet can give you he can average 7, 8, 9 assists a game. Mm-hmm. So it's not like you're necessarily missing out. Like of course you're missing the assist, I guess, that Şengün gave you, but it's not like you don't have anyone to fill that void. Mm-hmm. And even Jalen Green is decent at passing. So I think it's really just to some of these injuries clear things up. It's one of those addition by subtraction. Like sometimes this is, as a Pistons fan, I remember this, but when we traded away Josh Smith and got better, we didn't bring anything else back in return for him. Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying that they're necessarily just overall a better team without some of these guys, but in this short period of time, I think that has been the fact. Like just some of these guys being out opened up minutes for the other people. They're playing better, have more confidence. The style, I think, of play is different. It's way more up tempo as well. I don't think Şengün he's a lot more of like a half court set guy. Same like Jokic a lot of time. He's a half court set, same with Sabonis. You're running a bunch of actions and I'm trying to get the ball to you versus Jalen Green right now is just coming down the court. He's just coming down the court at niggas. Like, it's just like full head of steam. And that's just like completely different for people to have to play with.
Do you think when he comes back, I think he may come back, you think they can coexist moving forward, or is one of those things where you're going to have to pick between the two moving forward?
I think they can coexist. I think, though, the adjustment has to be made of, like, having the ball in Şengün's hands maybe a little bit less. Bringing his usage rate down maybe a little bit and kind of dispersing it with some of the other people. Mm-hmm. But I think, we were talking about this a little bit beforehand. We'll see how this season goes, but they were already talking about trying to make a big swing this summer and trading one of their 2 stars.
Joel Embiid pull up to Houston. It's not happening.
That would be crazy, but I don't think Embiid's gonna want to go anywhere.
That'd be crazy though. Shit. Damn. Obviously, we're still holding on to these veterans. The greatness of KD, LeBron, Steph, and whatnot. But it's a clear indication that by the snap of a finger, it's going to be a young man's league. So, do you think it's better for the league to see the Houston Rockets in the plane as opposed to the Warriors or Lakers missing it?
I mean, it'll always be fun to see young teams, but I'm never going to say I would rather not see Steph Curry or LeBron in the playoffs. Mm-hmm. Like, that's just – I had to come to this realization. Like, I feel like I knew this, but, like, especially this year, Steph is just – and this is me. Yeah. Steph is the most fun player to watch play in the league.
For you?
Yeah, for me, as of right now. Like, he's just the most exciting, like, his three – because other people, not a whole bunch of other people, but some other people can still hit threes from his range and other stuff like that. But like the way he does everything, it's just an experience, bro. It really is an experience, and especially like in the playoffs, like he's just the type of person that you want in there. Yeah.
Most fun for me to watch play is probably Kyrie.
That's real. Mm-hmm. He be going crazy. Mm-hmm.
I've seen Steph play live too. It feels like I'm just watching like AAU nigga.
Why?
Just shooter playing without the basketball, going crazy. But I like.
But he's the reason that those AAU niggas are playing like that.
Yeah, no, I'm just talking about when I play AAU when I was a kid and shit like that. So I mean, I've definitely seen a lot of players. Like I know he's better than all of them, but I've definitely seen a lot of players live that I've kind of gravitated towards as opposed to watching Steph live. Is all I'm saying.
I got you.
Yeah, but I ain't mad at it.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's just a question I wanted for you. And then sticking on Steph Curry or the Warriors, rather, our last topic of the day. Did your boy from your city, Draymond Green, ruin the Warriors season? Right now they're the sixth. No, last year they were the sixth seed around this time. Right now they're the 10th seed. They're 39-34. They're 28-20 with Draymond Green puts on that uniform, and they're 11-14 without him. So their win percentage goes from 58% to 44%, which is the 14% difference. And right now, like I said, they may not even be able to play to contend for a playoff spot, man.
First of all,
it's not my boy.
Draymond's not my boy. Second of all, I'm from Detroit. He's from Saginaw, so he's not from my city either. But I think that, I mean, I don't say he ruined.
Because like I said, that 58%. So I feel like, 11 plus, that's 25 games. They may be a top 4 or 5 seed if he plays them games. Granted, you have to take into consideration injuries and whatnot, but that's a crazy difference from 58 to 44%. But keep going.
Yeah, no, it definitely is. I think that if we're gonna say if he ruined any season, it was last year. 100% ruined last year. That's just like without a doubt. But at this point, it's tough because at the same time he's clearly necessary as well for them. Like he's a really big part of everything that they do.
Yeah.
I think part of this year though, to be fair, has been Steve Kerr. Well, the West, but also Steve Kerr.
Fourth quarter lineups.
His lineups, and this is kind of honestly the same thing I was talking about with having depth. Like you look at, I could probably go down 11 people who deserve at least to be playing. I'm not saying that these guys are stars, but I'm saying if like Denver had some of their role players, Denver would be a much better team. I would replace pretty much. I think the only person off Denver's bench I might keep is Peyton Watson and maybe Christian Braun.
Yeah, I'm still trying to figure out what Christian Braun, like what his upside's gonna be. Yeah. Iggy was high on that nigga.
Yeah,
but keep going.
Yeah, but I think that he has not done a good job. Even, and people are saying Kuminga also made some adjustments on his own, but you just look at he wasn't even playing Kuminga earlier in the year for real. And Moody not playing, and they had Sarge was giving them like 10 points a game earlier in the year, and they have all these guys, and you're switching Clay back and forth from being on the bench and starting, and it just feels like he's just spent this whole year trying to figure out their rotations. And
I've been obviously, like, you can't control what goes on off the floor, but I've been so disappointed with Andrew Wiggins, bro. Ever since they won the championship.
Yeah, no, he was okay last year, but this year he's been buns and just like very on and off.
13 points?
Yeah, that's also what they're dealing with too, is some of their guys like that should be playing a certain way are not playing a certain way. I just think there's really a lot of factors that go into it outside of Draymond. And even Steph missed a couple games too, and I think they probably only won 1 or 2 of those games when Steph was out.
That's true.
So he played a role, and for sure, like his whole distraction of being suspended indefinitely, I know didn't help the team. But I wouldn't say that they were gonna be a top 3 seed, if that hadn't happened. So I don't necessarily know if that means he ruined. Like, what really is the difference of the 6 seed and being in the play-in? Like, say you're at 6 seed and you lose in the first round. Is that all that much better than potentially not making the playoffs?
I don't know, man. We have for narratives. But no, I see what you're saying. I just feel like they would just have. I'm just saying, like, just given the information, I just feel like they would have way more wiggle room and not have to worry about, trying to make the playoffs itself. Because now it's like, if you're the 9th or 10th seed, that is it. You know what I'm saying? As opposed to the 7 or 8, if you lose, you still got at least one more chance. Granted, it's just a one game, but you still have that one extra shot to win. So to potentially not even to potentially be a championship team 2 years ago to last year being a 6 seed to get into the second round to having Steph knowing he's getting older, having that big three still, and you possibly not even going to at least play in the plane, it's just kind of crazy to me.
But that championship team had more of like everyone's roles were more defined. You knew who all these people were. You weren't worried about playing the young guys either. That was a big part of it. Otto Porter, who's now retired, he was playing great that season for them. Clay, like that was the last great year of Clay as well. Like, I think that's also the thing is like 2 years for a 34-year-old is a lot. And even Steph is still great, but he's not as good as he was 2 years ago. Mm-hmm. You know, like if 2 years ago he was at a 95, maybe now he's at like a 90%, you know?
I think 2 years ago, 97.
Okay, but I'm saying though, it's still like there's still some drop off. He's still better than the vast majority of the league, but I still don't think he's as good as he was then.
Yeah.
Which is all these older people, you know, like even KD, LeBron, like all of them are still playing amazing, but they're still not as good as they were 2-3 years ago.
Yeah.
So I just don't think that what really is the difference to me in terms of, you know, you might have been a higher seed, but you still knew you were never going to win anything. Like this team to me still just feels like they don't have. Like when we look at like, okay,
it's just crazy. They got a fucking winning record too. The West is just so crazy, OD, bruh.
But when you look at like Shea, okay, he's the one heliocentric guy, but he has a bunch of nice, higher quality young players around him
who know their role.
Exactly. Steph, I don't know who's backing him up for real on a nightly basis. I really do not.
That's true. That is true. So if you had to give like a percentage breakdown on like the causes of the Warriors season, what would you kind of break that down to?
If I was breaking it down, I would give Draymond probably the bigger slice than anybody else.
Like 70? I'm kidding.
Like 50, 60, something 50, like 60, that. Yeah. But then everything else would probably be like coaching to players' roles to players' at. That's also the thing. Like they were dealing with earlier, and it's crazy because that's what, you know, a decent stretch of basketball will do. People will forget. But earlier in the year, like they had reports coming out of their camp. Yeah, Kuminga wants to leave, or he wants to play. Moody wants to leave. He wants to play. Like
Moody need to play more, which is
exactly.
Crazy to me.
But then also at the same time, who needs to play less out of who they're playing? Pods is playing really good. You know, Wiggins, you need his. He's not playing better than Moody, but I don't think they necessarily really. Moody's a 2 and he's a 3 for the most part. You know, like he just not has the same strength and height.
Chris Paul just came back from injury.
Chris Paul needs to play. Gary Payton Jr. to me needs to be getting some amount of minutes because he's really good at being a glue guy. Like they just have a lot of dudes who need minutes, and that's honestly I would put actually another big percentage of this on management.
Steve Kerr. Oh, okay.
No, not even Steve Kerr. Like. You want your coach to be able to make the best out of the situation. That's what an amazing coach would do. But also, if you're management, you put them in a situation where they don't have to make as many decisions like that. You know, you put a roster in front of them and like, these are the niggas that are playing.
And that's why homie dipped. What's his name?
Yeah, Bob. But also he dipped because he got them in this hole and I guess didn't really see, I feel like, a way out. And was I'm going to just go ahead
Magic Johnson.
Save my legacy, basically. Go to commentating.
But, and when he commentates, he calls their games on national television, which is funny to me. Okay, all right. So and in you know, the episode, do you see the Warriors making the playoffs this year? Yes or no? You think Steph can? Oh, okay.
I do because they're playing now that the Rockets are on their ass. Excuse me, they're playing differently. And I think that you can see in that game where Draymond got ejected in 4 minutes and Steph was crying. Like, I think it was more of like an anger crying, but that he was crying.
Like,
and I think it was like, bro, they are on our ass right now. And I'm competitive as hell.
One game, nigga. One game.
Exactly.
One game.
I want to at least be in the play-in. You gonna have us miss the. So I think that as long as Steph doesn't miss any more games, I think they'll make the play-in at least. I can see the difference in them now that somebody is on their heels.
Okay. Yeah, I don't think they're making it. I think it's gonna be. If looking at it right now, I think it stays where it is, and then Lakers get the AFC over the Kings since homie got hurt. I like the Lakers at home, and I like the Lakers matched up against the Warriors.
I guess so. You were at, I'm saying, but you still think they make the play-in?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I answer more of the play-in.
So you see them for sure making the play-in.
For sure see them making the play-in. That's what I mean was saying. But the
not so.
Play.
Would you count the play-in as the playoffs now? Sort of.
It kind of is. It kind of is
a little bit.
But that's tough. If they don't have to, it's crazy. Actually, the only team in the play-in that I think would beat them is the Lakers. So I think that if it doesn't end up being where them and the Lakers are 9-10, then I think they make the playoffs.
Okay, so Lakers would basically have to get to 7.
Yeah. Or 8, because if the Lakers
because 7, whoever wins 7, 8 get the 7th. Okay, yeah. Okay, that's not bad. Well, hey man, Sacramento. Hopefully y'all niggas lose, man. So, we gonna see, man. Any closing remarks for episode 142?
If you're in LA, stay dry. Honestly, I think it's
happy
cold.
Easter too.
Yeah, happy Easter. I think it's cold around a lot of the country right now, so stay warm too.
I feel cold right now. Shit,
man.
Happy Easter, and everyone strive for greatness and try to be consistent. And behind the scenes, appreciate you, Peyton Arbor, for always holding it down.
Of course, yep.
And Terrence, I'm tired of babysitting you. I'm kidding. Milo's been pretty chill. He's actually sleeping right now. But ladies and gentlemen, that was season 3, episode 142 of the Seezus Show. Make sure to subscribe on all forms of social media at TheSeezusShow, at Carl Conyers, at TheSeezusShow. We out.